Okay, so I think we're ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and kick off our meeting. For those of you who don't recognize me, I am April Meneghetti, and I am the current, as of this moment, president of CCDEH. And so I just want to start off by thanking you all for taking the time to attend our annual meeting today. I know it's really difficult right now for many of us to carve out the time that's needed for something like this. This year has brought us many challenges, COVID-19 obviously being the biggest, and now the unprecedented number of fires that we're dealing with across the state. These challenges have brought things to us that we never thought we'd ever have to deal with. And so we've had to quickly adapt and learn all of the ever-changing guidance from the state, and so that we can be the assistance that we need to be for both our operators and the public. Seeing the response that I've seen across the state from many environmental health professionals has been inspirational during these challenging times. And I just want to end by giving a sincere thank you to all of you for all that you do on a daily basis to assist the public and protect the public health. You guys are heroes. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and ask for a motion to approve our agenda today. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Who was the second?
Dave Conley seconded. Dave is fine.
Okay, thanks, Dave. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. And then next, we want to approve our August minutes. Hopefully, you guys have had a chance to review them. Were there any suggested changes or comments for the August minutes? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the August minutes?
Lisa, I'll make a motion that we approve the August minutes.
Thank you, Lisa. Can I get a second?
I second.
Vicki. Thanks, Vicki. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Any opposed? Abstained? All right. Motion passes. And so with that, we head into the president's report. I'm going to keep it very brief because I want to make sure we have time for all of the other items on our agenda. So I just want to say, I really appreciate being able to serve as president this year. I wish I could have done more. And I think that's a theme that a lot of us in the executive committee feel. It's been hard to fit in our CCDH duties in addition to all the other things that we've been doing. I know a lot of us have had to be part of the EOC, and I see that Melissa's still there. Luckily, I have ended my term in our EOC. But I just want to say thank you, and I think you guys have been doing an awesome job, and I look forward to this next year where hopefully we can get back to more normal times. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Justin.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is really a unique experience. Out of 65 years, I'm sure that the founding fathers and mothers, if that's the right expression, of CCDH didn't envision 65 years later we'd all be connected via these Zoom devices. But so it is, and here we are, 65 years after this organization was established back at Fallen Leaf Lake in Northern California. I have the executive director report up on the screen. Thanks, Cheryl. It's posted on the website, and it's very brief. I try to capture just some of the big issues that we've been dealing with that April mentioned, And really, despite the fact that it's been an extraordinarily difficult year for all sorts of reasons, we have managed to keep our head above water in CCDH and KHA. And I think that's gratifying because hopefully you, as the directors and as the associate members, have found CCDH and our network, maybe even more so than the executive committee or anything else, but the network to be really helpful during this difficult time of the pandemic. What we did do is we asked the governor to provide this recognition of environmental health back in September the 26th, so last week. And unfortunately, because of a lot of things on his plate, and you know, if you think our plates are full, I cannot imagine how many issues he's got to handle. But unfortunately, that did arrive a little late. It happened basically the day of the 26th. But nevertheless, it is a recognition, and we can use it as a recognition by the governor of the state that we, the governor and the communities around California, thank the public environmental health professionals for the work that they've done. And it's an acknowledgement that is way overdue, and it's acknowledgement that is particularly important now with the very, very disturbing, divisive nature of the civil discourse in the country right now. And as you know, a number of our health officers have either been booted out or felt forced to leave their positions. I don't think any of our ranks have been quite in that situation, but I know starting with Orange County, we saw a number of health officers being squeezed out of their positions, largely over the proposed science-based recommendations and directives they had for this COVID response. So not to get into that too much, but I do think it provides the backdrop of the work that we do, not only with pandemic, the fires, and all the other things that we have to handle. It's important for us to keep our head high and keep CCDH going. The other obviously important task and success, I would say, this year, not quite completed, is the series of the training, what we call the virtual training series. And those, I believe, and I'm sure many of you will concur because we've had great attendance, have been hugely successful. They were designed to be short, highly focused exposés of issues, a little bit of discussion around them. And when Jeff was setting them up as the incoming president, who normally would chair the actual in-person conference, the idea of these 14 sessions was that we would not only cover current events, but we'd also tackle some of the topics that we had originally planned to have in our in-person September conference. So thanks to Excella and all those that have participated, the presenters, I think that was a great start to the virtual new world that we're in. And hopefully we can continue at some level these training webinars, because they obviously provide a tremendous opportunity for you to get your CEUs, as well as having some of these current issues being kept in the forefront. Perhaps the fourth paragraph is a little strong. I don't know if CCH has ever been stronger, but certainly by the numbers, we're in very, very good shape. I think there is a disturbing, I wouldn't say trend, but there's a disturbing occurrence that for the past 20 years has only happened once or twice a decade. And now we see a little bit more of a tendency not to appoint an REHS or to hold these environmental health positions vacant or interim for a while. And I think we need to focus a little bit more on that. We also have seen a very, very high retirement rate, probably the highest in the history of CCDH, of 13 directors leaving all in 1 year or one 12-month span. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, turnover is good, making room for new is good. But as long as those directors aren't leaving under a threat of demotion of their functions or their departments. So I think with our professional development, with our political connections, we've got to keep focus on not only the state, but the local jurisdictions to honor and to support environmental health. We have absolutely, without doubt, much more attendance and participation by associate members than ever before. I think we have something like 90 associate members. And that bodes really, really well for the organization. When Cheryl and I started over 20 years ago, we literally had a handful. Some of the bigger jurisdictions had 1 or 2 associate members. And now we see the LAs and the San Diegos and Sacramentos and others having multiple associate members. And I think the huge advantage of that and what this is going to do to keep the organization buoyant and strong and consistent is that you're training folks and you're allowing folks to get engaged in the organization and learn some of these management skills and get a broader perspective of environmental health through CCDH much sooner than just being dumped into it as they take office or as they take a position within CCDH. So that's very, very encouraging to see that. And I do think that those associate members are not only welcome, but they're urged to participate strongly in all the things that CCDH do. The next issue, I think, has, again, April alluded to, our policy committees have obviously not been as involved as they have been in traditional years. It's been difficult, extremely difficult for those policy committee chairs to find the time to find the members. And also sometimes those policy committees are driven by legislation and the review of legislation. Much of their time traditionally is spent on looking at these bills and commenting on them, analyzing them, and sharing their recommendations. And that pretty much has fallen by the wayside this year, except for a handful of bills, which I'll touch on quickly at the next section of my comments. But I got to say that otherwise, procedurally, everything's run very smoothly. We must reflect quickly on the fact that for the first time in 65 years, a group, CCDEH, which has been an informal network of you in your official capacity, has been created as a 501c3 nonprofit. And I think some of you may not even have known that CCDH wasn't even an organization. It's been one of the longest standing county organizations, but we were never incorporated. We always operated under the umbrella of KHAR, and KHAR was a 501c4. Now we actually have 2 distinct, legally separate organizations, effective the end of last year, beginning of this year, and we have a completely separate board for KHAR with a chair who was Marilyn this year and did a fantastic job in getting KHAR started as its own free entity with its own bylaws, articles of incorporations, and now procedure manual. So KHAR is operating legally and functionally entirely separately from CCDH. We do, however, have 2 very vital links that keep these 2 organizations inextricably bound, and one is the transfer of the leadership from CCDH president. The following year becomes the KHAR chair of the board, and that keeps the continuity. And the second thing, obviously, is that CCDH makes recommendations on the advocacy to KHAR, and KHAR picks up the task from there. So at this point, you share staff, you share Cheryl and myself. We serve both roles as executive director and manager. That may or may not change in the future. It's up to the organizations. But obviously, in addition to the president becoming the chair, the other relationships, we have the staff connections. And just to mention, especially for those retired directors, please help us and provide that information about your interests, how best to contact you, so that both for CCDH and for KHA, we can keep you engaged, because we know there's a massive amount of institutional knowledge that is leaving or has left over the past few years. I just wanted to also say that we have the fiscal reserves. It's probably not necessary this year to look at a membership dues increase from CCDH because the way the two organizations have been structured. So at least for now, we can put that issue to bed. We've got a small cost of living increase for the membership dues. And then finally, I want to touch on the legislative year and just bleed into the next section. And it's been very, very difficult. It's been a remarkably confusing year in the legislature, a challenging one, obviously, for the legislators. And as I've said a couple of times throughout the year, we started with almost 100 bills that were sent to the policy committees late March 2020. And as we have for 2 decades, I've reviewed the bills that were introduced, tried to identify those of interest and sent them to those policy committees. And I must say that process generally works really, really well. But by the end of April, within a month, that bill number was whittled down by the legislature to probably no more than a dozen bills of interest to us. And as a result, it ended up that, quite honestly, the policy committees did very little review throughout the year, partly because of the lack of numbers of bills that they had, but also because the bills that we were interested in, many of which were held in the early months or early weeks of the session in order to cut down on the pressure on the legislature. They realized that they themselves would have to isolate or provide, more social distancing than normal. And as a result, they had very few hours of actual active work in the legislature to review these bills. In the beginning of the year, we did have a very ambitious legislative agenda. We had 5 bills that we actually sponsored through KHA. 3 of those 5 were early victims of the culling process and were taken out within the first several weeks. So we ended up with only 2 bills, which KHA was sponsoring. And AB 2296 was the bill that was dealing with the LPA funding, and AB 3336 was the bill dealing with food deliveries. I'm absolutely devastated to say that the governor vetoed our AB 2296 yesterday. It's a much longer story than we have right now. It's extraordinarily frustrating. It's frankly peed me so much because of the amount of effort we've put into working a relationship with the Water Board and getting this all on track with our retreat and our webinar series with the Water Board folks, and our efforts to actually create a viable, consistent local oversight program from 1 connection to 200 connections. And frankly, without being too belligerent, the governor's office and Water Board are going to have to answer to this. If they want us to play a game and they want us to be collaborative, they're going to have to answer. But I can explain the nominal reason for that veto is that at the time of transfer of the drinking water program from the Department of Public Health to the State Water Board, the water buffaloes and the water agencies and the tax groups and some local governments extracted a commitment from Jerry Brown, governor then, that the fees that the water agencies were paid were not going to go up by more than 5%. And it's kind of a red meat extraction they got, because it's really strange, as you know, to try to set a statutory arbitrary limit of 5% on a very dynamic and very necessary program. The Department of Finance, I believe, from what I gathered over the last 24 hours, indicated that if 2296 were to be passed and if the funds were to be made available to the locals, they would exceed that 5% limit. My frustration and our frustration and RCRC's frustration, because they put a lot of time into this, is that we deliberately stalled the appropriation of funds for 2296 for 18 months in order to address this issue. And we had told the Water Board that we were unable to lift that 5% cap. That 5% cap was way, way bigger a political issue than 2296. And at the time of sending that bill to the governor, we did not have opposition from a single water agency. The only group that was opposed was the Jarvis Taxpayers Association. So I don't want to belabor it. It's frustrating, but it does mean a lot of sort of navel gazing and going back to the drawing board on our LPA program, because if we are unable to get this through, I suspect what we have been threatening and warning about is that the LPAs are going to have to be surrendering their programs back to the state as they find this financial challenge. So lastly, good news though is our AB 3336, the food delivery. Thanks to the help from LA County and others, it's a modest bill, but I think under COVID was a good indication that we wanted to protect the public. So thanks again to everybody. I think that we should not beat ourselves up, that it's been an unproductive year. I'd say the opposite. And when we have a chance to look at the action plan, before we look at the action plan for next year, which Jeff and I will go through later, you can look at now, right now, while we do the rest of the proceedings, the update. So there are two action plans. One is the update from 2019-2020, and you'll see on that action plan a significant number of green highlights, which have shown what we have accomplished this year. So thanks to the executive committee, to April, to Cheryl, to Michelle, everybody on the policy committees for keeping the flame alive. And with that, I hand it back to April.
All right. Thank you, Justin. Next up, I have the treasurer's report. Dave?
Thanks. Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
A little louder, Dave.
How's that, Justin? Is that a little better? I don't project as much as Justin does, so if I start trailing off, just let me know. So we had a really good fiscal year, this last year amid all the problems. We started the year with a projected loss of $7,718. Happy to report that because of sponsorships that we received for last year's conference, we actually ended with a $7,074 plus. So over $14,000 increase in what we projected. As Justin had said, we filed the Form 1023 to become a 501c3 this year. That's a longer process than just than the Secretary of State process. We filed with Secretary of State, I believe, in December, and got our approval to be an entity in January or February. We also took over, since the last conference, we took over the publication sales and job advertising from KHA. So we have we have income coming in from the sales of pool codes, cal codes, and disaster manuals that helped. We also have 90 associate members and 62 directors that are paying dues to the organization. And that's a great group of people for this organization. Our training series, we're doing great with our training series. We do need you to let your staff know that they can log into CCDEH and take any of the classes. The Thursday morning trainings that we've had are available to staff after they've been done live, and that will help boost our incomes. Leonard needs to be muted. And finally, well, not finally, but we're on budget. Our current checking account balance is $104,563. Our savings balance is $38,530. We have deposits out for our upcoming conferences in hopes that we'll actually be able to all meet in person and see each other more than in the Brady Bunch group here, of $21,000. So, and we have accounts receivable of $11,133. Those of you that are in that $11,133 have probably received notices from Cheryl. And that's the end of my report. If Cheryl has anything to add.
Yep, good job, Dave.
April and Dave, I wonder if I could share one quick comment, an explanation here, again related to the separation of CCDH and KHA. Dave touched on it, but just to be clear, I think the board of KHA and the executive committee, and we got to use those two terms now because KHA has a board and not an executive committee. Those two groups came to a decision, which I believe is a really excellent decision in separation of roles and responsibilities of the two organizations. And basically, KHA is now stripped down to a smaller board and to a fewer functions. It's going to focus primarily on advocacy, because that's a legal requirement, and the contracts for temporary staffing, which have been extraordinarily successful. And the publications and training, a lot of that has been shifted back or to CCDH. So that's why CCDH now has another revenue source that they didn't really have. And we don't have to switch money, hopefully, as frequently between the organizations. We were kind of balancing the budgets by shifting funding from one group to the other over the past 20 years. And now it's going to likely be a little bit cleaner, but CCDH will have the training and the publications function. So that's why you see it on our ledger, not KHA.
Thank you, Justin. So with that, does anybody have any questions about the financial report? All right, hearing none, we need to have the financial report approved.
So April, again, sorry to butt in. We have prepared motions, and according to the bylaws and California law, because this is the legally required annual meeting, we are going to have a poll, a vote, rather than just the voice vote you did for the agenda and the thing. So there is the vote up. Excel has prepared the poll, and you may want to just refer to that.
All right, so the motion is up on the screen. Ignore the motion numbers, which are going a little out of order from the numbers we numbered them as. But so this motion is for CCDH membership approves the year-end statement and financial reports as outlined in attachment C, which Dave just went over. And this is so moved by Dave, seconded by Jeff. So if you could go ahead and vote yay nay, or abstain right now, that'd be great.
So April, this is Lisa. I'm not able to click because it says hosts and panelists cannot vote.
Yeah, you know what? I was about to
Hang
say
on.
that. I'm getting that same
Hang on.
message.
Since we've all been promoted to panelists, we
Yeah. Hang on. Don't think I can undo that. Try it again.
Okay.
is Araceli host still?
Hang on. I'm here.
Okay.
Try it again. Okay, you can vote now. Try it.
Oh, yay, it works now. Thanks, Tim. All right.
Still open. Got 30 votes. Want to give another couple minutes?
Yeah.
Another minute?
Another, 30 seconds.
I'm not sure if it capped out at 30. It's weird. It just stopped.
It stopped.
So you want me to close it?
You know, Tim, it disappeared off of my screen as I was clicking. I didn't even get a chance to click the submit button.
All right, guys, since everybody is apologies for hopping in here, since everybody is technically a panelist now, Tim, go ahead and hit relaunch poll 3, and then if everybody can give him just 1 second.
Got the box, allow panelists to vote.
Okay, I'm going to hit relaunch poll 3. It's going to clear out.
Okay.
Everyone, don't hit end poll. Just go ahead and vote for which motion.
Okay.
Kind of gave everyone the keys to the castle here, so.
Why did it stop before, Kim?
I think someone accidentally hit end poll.
Ah, Vicki, can you make sure Vicki Jones is a panelist, Kim?
She is, yes.
We've got 61 votes. Is that enough?
Yeah. I think that's enough.
Okay.
And hit
And
end poll.
share results. So there's the vote.
Okay.
See the poll results?
Awesome. That's pretty snazzy.
All right.
All right. So motion passes. Thank you all. Next up, we have the policy committee reports. So I'm just going to go down the list. We'll start with food safety committee.
Okay, so let me see if I got it up there. So hopefully everybody was able to get the report pulled down from the website. And so as Justin said, this has been a very challenging year. I think that without his support, we probably would have not gotten through AB 3336. And so thank you, Justin, for helping us get that through. That was one of our accomplishments. In addition to that, we were able to have Heather step up from San Diego to take over as CRFSC. And so we're glad that we're going to be able to continue that committee and really work with her, CRA, who is now co-chairing with her on the future of CRFSC. We unfortunately weren't able to hold our forum with the CRA in light of COVID. So hopefully next year we'll be in a different position and we'll be able to tackle that. And I won't spend a lot of time going through it since you have the opportunity to review it, but we do look forward to putting out guidelines on the implementation of 336 and hope to have that in place before January 1st when the law does go into place. So I'll leave it at that and look forward to another year where hopefully next year we'll be able to accomplish more.
Sorry.
I can't hear you, April.
There. Now I'm unmuted. Thank you, Lisa. Does anybody have any questions about the food committee report? All right. Hearing none, I'm going to go over to solid waste. Christine. Christine, you're muted.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. The solid waste policy report just got posted, I guess, late last night or early this morning. Apologies for my tardiness. Yes, the Solid Waste Committee, generally we have a lot of legislation coming through. This year we really didn't. But I think the one thing that this committee really worked hard on was the SB 1383 regulations, and CalRecycle has been hard at work working to get those regulations in play and also provide tools for all the counties and jurisdictions to be able to implement those regulations. And so what we're seeing right now, what's just come out from CalRecycle, they've just launched some model tools that's on their education part of their website. And they have webinars that are going to be starting this week, or this month, sorry. They'll be October 26th to the 29th. One will be on their model tools, which include like videos and all sorts of training and presentation tools that you can use if you need to present something to your board or that. Then they've got on the 27th, the franchise agreements, and on the 28th, ordinances, and then on the 29th, they have one on the edible food agreements. So a big part of SB 1383 is also about edible food recovery. And so that is a place where environmental health will have a fairly large role in that going forward. The other part of our policy committee, what we worked on this year, we had worked on the land application and biosolids. And the land application legislation we pulled due to COVID and everything happening. So we do hope to bring that up again next year. And then we have had a little bit of leeway with the biosolids and the general order, working with CalRecycle and State Water Resources Control Board to see if they will look at the general order for biosolids and start looking to put in emerging contaminants of concern, such as like PFAS, and work to better protect the land and waterways when applying biosolids to the soils. And I guess the other thing was there were two presentations for the trainings for the annual conference. Ours were early on in the session. We had the first one, which was on August 20th, and looked into the insights into meeting organic recycling mandates and SB 1383, which seems to be the highlight of our committee this year and the past couple of years. And then on August 27th, we discussed the circular economy and intersections between waste reduction and public health. And so that's pretty much it for our committee. And I think going ahead, going into the future, we're still going to be looking deeper into 1383 and how to implement those mandates and how to bring all the jurisdictions along. And then maybe bring back up the land application ordinance and biosolids. So that's it for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Any questions? All right, moving on down the list to Hazmat Koopa. Jag, are you there?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Yes, I'm here. And it's nice to be on today. I haven't been able to join in on any of the previous meetings, and I also missed our all of our conference, including the hazmat segment. So I want to thank Justin and Cheryl and everybody else for stepping up, and I want to apologize for not being there. Having said that, Hazmat Committee, as others have alluded, this year has been light. We have been focusing on some of the bills from last year, like AB 1429 and resurrection of AB 1500, and some of the new bills such as AB 2333, which particularly Coupa Forum Board and staff from Santa Clara and San Diego and others worked on it very extensively. However, most of these bills did not work out, and they were basically held, as Justin alluded to. And Hazmat Committee only had 3 meetings. We started the year pretty strong. We had 2 meetings back to back, one in January and one at the Coupa conference, and then we had another meeting. And after that, other events took over, and we sort of I couldn't keep up with Coupa Forum Board and their meetings. So as you know, Hazmat Committee is basically a link between the Coupa Forum Board and Cal EPA and the BDOs, and we address various Coupa-related issues. That's basically about it. I mean, I don't have much to report, and I just want to thank everybody on the Hazmat Committee for providing their timely comments to me, and especially want to thank Cheryl and Justin for picking up the slack that I haven't been there, and thank you to all. Appreciate all the help.
Thanks, Jag. Any comments, questions?
Yeah.
I'd just like to share a couple of observations. Jag is absolutely right. Jag and all the other directors and associate members that serve in a dual role between CCDH and the Coupa Forum, it's really critical. The Coupa Forum has been very engaged in a number of these issues that he mentioned, the reconstruction of DTSC, the health officers, voluntary cleanup authority, everything from treated wood waste. The Coupa Forum Board's been active on a number of these issues, and we have had that voice through Jag and myself and others to provide the CCDH perspective on it. So we will, I haven't mentioned, we can maybe touch on it when we talk about next year's plan, but as you know, we have this joint responsibility with KHAR because we actually sponsor and do most of the advocacy for the Coupa Forum Board, as well as all the advocacy for CCDH. So when we get to the Hazmat Coupa part of the action plan, we should be cognizant of the fact that that is a KHAR responsibility as well to implement what the Coupa Forum Board wants to do.
Hey, April.
Yeah.
If I could offer a few things just to bridge the connection further between Cal Coupa Forum and CCDH. Cheryl and I have been working very extensively on the Cal Coupa conference next February and March. It's going to be a virtual conference. It's going to be a lot more than just webinars. It's going to be a lot of engagement between attendees, with other attendees, with exhibitors. We're going to have a virtual exhibit hall. That's going to be very engaging. We'll have contests to encourage people to visit booths and attend sessions and create individual meetups as a follow-up to session attendance. There's going to be a lot of cool things in this conference, and I want to just put it on everybody's radar to pencil in starting on February 2nd. We don't know how long it's going to be. It's going to be Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays for several weeks, we think. We're not sure if we're going to have concurrent sessions yet or not. It's all dependent on the abstracts. We've got a lot of abstracts submitted. If you want to still submit an abstract, there's still a little bit of time. Go to the calcoupa.org website, and right on the front and center on the homepage is abstract submittal information. The cost for registration is $375. There are scholarships that will be available to every Coupa and PA. And so, Cheryl, you might want to add something to what I mentioned, but I just want to encourage people to get ready for that because it's going to be a really amazing virtual conference.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I'm excited to see how it turns out. It sounds really fun. Cheryl, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
the new word for the conference to engage people, it's called gamification. So get ready to be gamified.
I like it. All right, so we'll go ahead and thank you, Justin and Tim, for adding, and thanks, Jag. So we'll move on to land and water. So Vicki.
Good morning. So in land and water, we've had some recent things that have come up that have been that will have some pretty big changes for many counties in the state. One of those things was Power versus Stanislaus County, a court decision that came down from the Supreme Court very recently that does now require that if there is any potential for subjectivity related to horizontal setbacks or contamination potential in an area, these are things that would, if we would be normally then requiring some subjectivity in our determination when we're reviewing a well permit application in those areas, then that would kick it into being a discretionary decision, and with that will then trigger a CEQA evaluation, even if it's just to determine if the well maybe the proposal fits into a categorical exemption from further CEQA review. You still have to make that determination. So there will be some changes that need to be made for many counties, and so we did discuss that. I had arranged a couple weeks ago a webinar that included some experts on a panel that provided presentations, an attorney and a hydrogeologist, so that people could have a chance to get questions answered and hear about what their expertise is on the matter, because they do have expert advice to provide on that. And they also did, I provided that information out to anybody who wanted that about contact information. They can still call those experts to ask questions. The decisions were to be made because the decision was final by the 28th of September. So there is urgency in ensuring that counties are properly applying discretionary permit reviews where we're required in law. And so I just really urge everybody to, if you haven't spoken to your councils and your planning departments, other people involved in permitting processes that have to do with water extractions and CEQA, I would say definitely you want to have those meetings right away and work out a process for that. Other processes may still be able to be ministerial and over the counter that are not triggered by a discretionary or subjective decision related to setbacks or potential contamination. So I just wanted to kind of stress the urgency on that for everybody, because I don't want anybody having any legal issues regarding that. And this pertains to domestic and irrigation wells. So I don't want anyone thinking that it's only irrigation wells, but it would be any extraction well, any potential well that could fall into needing CEQA review. So that was kind of a big issue we recently had come up for everybody to look at. In the report, I also mentioned John Ricker had represented CCDEH on the TAC that was convened by the Water Board for stormwater dry well guidance development, and so that is completed and is available at the link provided. So definitely take a look at that so you can see what the results of that were. Thank you to John for his work on this committee and as part of that TAC. Regarding on-site wastewater treatment program, we have our OTS TAC committee still working on a couple of guidance and informational documents that has to do with inspection and construction of OTS systems greater than 10,000 gallons per day. Normally that wouldn't fall into our purview because, I know in my LAMP, we don't have anything to do with OTS systems typically that are greater than 10,000 gallons per day. systems, but there have been some directors in the state that have received pushback from the Regional Water Quality Control Board on them saying it wouldn't be theirs to put into place because they don't have waste, if they're choosing not to put waste discharge requirements on a certain system of that size. So we're seeking assistance from the TAC to look into that, see what kind of permit guidance or what kind of instruction can we have if we need to basically inspect installation and just know that it's being constructed correctly for systems that size. In addition to an informational fact sheet we wanted to have created that helps us just communicate with the public and with our planning departments on the fact that environmental health does have an important role when it comes to looking at if a septic system is allowable to be placed for accessory dwelling units, and if that causes any kind of impact related to setbacks for wells and septics, and if the property is large enough to handle the load from a septic system to allow these dwelling units. So that's something that's also in the process of being developed. As we know, AB 2296 unfortunately was vetoed by the governor. Justin did mention that, and I do want to thank everybody, Jerry Sipe and Justin and everybody that had a role in trying to move this forward to help our LPAs fund their programs so that we can ensure safe and affordable drinking water at the local level for these systems. And as was mentioned, local entities are going to have, unfortunately, without this being approved, are going to have some things to look at as far as if it's sustainable for them to continue to implement the LPA at the local level, or if they need to provide those programs back to the state for them to implement. So I know there will be some discussions at different local counties about this concern. Biosolids, Liz Pozzebon, thank you to Liz. She's been very instrumental in working with the Water Board to discuss the biosolids general order and to have them take a look at that and work to improve and update it, because it hadn't been updated in a very long time, and there have been, many papers written since then, many concerns about constituents that could be concerning for land application, and that it could infiltrate the ground into groundwater. And there is just not enough testing that's being done of emerging and known constituents of concern that could be an issue for our groundwater supplies, where where land application occurs of biosolids. And so PFAS is one of those constituents of concern that the Water Board has said that they were going to be starting looking at and having testing done, and to see if things need to change there regarding PFAS, and hopefully other things as well may come later. I know we still have concerns of things like pharmaceuticals as well. So thank you to Liz for her work to help them understand that this is important and needs to be looked at and studied. I also want to thank again Justin, Cheryl, Tim, Darren, Wendy, for everybody's work on our presentation this year regarding small water systems and domestic water systems and ensuring drinking water quality for these systems. We currently have, with private water systems, domestic wells, we don't really have any kind of programs in most counties in place regarding water quality. And so we've been working together on this for a while, looking at what kind of structure can we provide that may help with some kind of incremental way to help ensure drinking water quality for all Americans and all citizens and residents in California, especially those that are maybe of more need and economic justice needs, to make sure that everybody has an equal right to that safe drinking water. And so a large part of that is information. That is what the Water Board is working on, is putting together a water quality risk aquifer map. And they did provide that at our last Water and Land Committee meeting, where they did show us what that map is looking like and what kind of data would be viewable on that map. So we all got a chance to view, and there will be a more opportunity for comment as well coming up this October regarding that. So there's opportunity for even further comment on that risk aquifer map. Legislation, we talked about AB 2296, still continued. Data submission is still required for SB 200. We have been recently provided a survey by the Water Board, by Wendy Kilu, about what kinds of data we have, what kinds of data we would find that we could submit, how we store our data currently for drinking water quality. And so with this information, so if you haven't taken that survey, and it's provided to you, please do so. And then that way they can kind of create a better idea of what data they do want from us and what data maybe they don't want from us, because they don't have a system set up to necessarily accept all forms of data, such as hard copy reports. And so they're going to be looking at that, but there's data to be submitted by January 1st. And so, and that data is specified in SB 200, but basically reminder is that it does require data from, I think it was January 1st, 2014 through this year. It needs to be submitted to the Water Board by the 1st of January 2021. And so they should be providing us with some more information soon about how they want that data submitted and to whom they want that submitted to. And so I just was noting the recommended actions are what we do have listed in the action plan for 2020-2021 to continue with steps if there's a way to either find help for funding for LPA programs, and or, county jurisdictions to consider if they may feel like it is more beneficial for them to provide those programs back to the state. That would be for the jurisdictions to decide. The WellTAC will continue efforts to work collaboratively with DWR and the Water Board to update well water standards. That's still in progress. And we just have been informed that we have 2 new co-chairs for the Water WellTAC, Chris Hunley and David Alanis. So welcome to both of them, 2 co-chairs of the Water WellTAC, and thank you so much for stepping up and volunteering to help do that so that we can have a very robust Water WellTAC program and committee. So thank you so much for that. CCDEH, we're going to continue to monitor and discuss potential approaches to public trust doctrine considerations for well construction permitting and with other stakeholders. We'll continue to collaborate with the Water Board on legislation or other actions to update regulatory standards pertaining to land application of biosolids, and continue to work with the Water Board on SB 200 data submission, which we did talk about, and also consult with them about them creating a database where we'd be able to potentially utilize that database to house our electronic data for drinking water quality. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Vicki. I know you guys have a lot that you're working on. Any questions, comments?
I do also want to state one more thing really quick. Oh, Liz, I don't know if you're going to mention this, but I did want to state that with Jerry Sipes' announcement of his retirement from Plumas County, that does leave a vacancy as a co-chair with me for the Water and Land Policy Committee. So I'm happy to have somebody volunteer to co-chair this committee with me. It'd be very helpful. There's a lot to cover. So I'd appreciate that. So just let me know. Thank you.
Go ahead, Liz.
And yes, so Justin and Vicki, maybe you can get your help with this. This is Liz Posey-Bond. But we would like to propose support through the executive committee to take a look, or form a group to take a look at potential legislation to limit the application of CEQA to water well construction permits The CEQA component is to address the word adequate in the well bulletin standards as it relates to horizontal setbacks from potential contamination sources. So if there isn't a prescribed setback, for instance, or if there is a prescribed setback and you need to decrease the setback or increase it for some reason based on the property characteristics, something as simple as that, which is intended, the word adequate, to address flexibility, to address local conditions, we'll throw it into CEQA. So we feel that we'd like to take a look at legislation that would limit that, notwithstanding SGMA, the discretionary processes related to water use or water resource use, related to SGMA or a county's land use or police powers authority or public trust doctrine authorities, where discretionary processes would be used. But we think this is important because it would throw us into analyzing a host of environmental impacts if a well had to go into the CEQA process that we're really powerless to address, and will delay issuance of permits, especially if it's needed for domestic well use for access to water supplies until an analysis is completed. And at the end of the day, with a lengthy and extensive process, the end result could be as simple as move your setback 10 feet to the east or west. So that's why we would like to have support of the conference through the executive committee to look at legislation to address that issue. So I'm wondering if you can help.
Yeah, Justin, what should we do here?
Yeah, April, thank you. We will address this. As I will note, when Jeff and I go through the action plan, there were a number of submissions that came in, just before this meeting. So we haven't reflected all of these recommendations in the draft action plan, but Liz and I have discussed this. It's absolutely appropriate. Provided there are no objections, we'll move ahead and start making inquiries and try to find the appropriate legislator to carry this for us, because I think that we would get very broad support from the other local governments. I cannot see any reason why RCRC, CSAC, the League, and others wouldn't support us. This is not a jailbreak. This is just a very practical, functional recommendation that should move forward.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Vicki. Next up, we have Community Environmental Health. Ron?
Thanks, April. For the most part, our committee really was trying to deal with issues that have been in the previous year and trying to bring those to some type of a satisfactory end. But COVID obviously had an impact on everything. What it did do, though, was to tell us that we need to find better ways to communicate, particularly the example between the recreational attack, North and Southern California, to bring those two groups together so that we can have a more robust, standardized effort when it comes to addressing and analyzing the different issues that come up, particularly in the recreational health arena. So the team has decided that Microsoft Teams would be the better platform. We are working with CCDHIT to try to make that happen, and then we're going to work toward that. In essence, it seems like Team is the preferred platform for most of our TAC groups. That being said, we'll see how that works out. We still have documents that need to be shared and those kinds of things. So working with our IT team is going to be critical. As you know, the pandemic had profound effect on a lot of different types of businesses, including recreational businesses. And so the recreational tax created some guidelines that covered those businesses that were not covered in the state's guidelines. And so that particular guideline will be coming forth, if it hasn't already, for everybody to look at and use when it's time to start opening up those pool facilities. Of course, we know that it depends on what county you're in and where you are among the tiers when you're able to open up those different facilities. Also, AB 1161 was looked at by our recreational tax. I just found out this morning that the bill was actually vetoed by the governor, which is a good thing because the way that it was written after our review, there were a lot of very specific safety guidelines and requirements that were not included. Although we thought we had an agreement with the author, turns out what was submitted wasn't what we agreed to. And so we're really happy about the fact that the governor vetoed it. It gives us an opportunity to work with the author again this year and hopefully meet all of those requirements that are necessary for public safety. And moving on to the body art TAC. Again, that TAC wanted to also create a better communication tool, and it seems like Teams is the way to go. But of course, Zoom may be an option as well. Like I said, we're working with IT to see what's going to work best for all of our different TACs. SB 217 for the organizational and recreational camp bill really was put on hold again. We're going to look at that in 2021. There were too many provisions in that particular bill that really were not going to be covered by environmental health departments. Those issues really need to go to Department of Social Services and for CDPH to look at as well, so we can come up with something that can be in agreement, first of all, with our groups and what CDPH feels like is necessary in order to protect the kids in all aspects and not just the environmental aspects. So we're going to be working on that particular bill again next year. It's been a while, it's been around for a while, but we want to get it right. So we will continue that work. For biomonitoring, particularly for the counties of Alameda and Contra Costa, there was a request of CCDH to actually be in support of an additional $10 million of revenue for the effort for biomonitoring. That funding is going to create more ability to do more work. And like I said before, there's a lot of work along this issue in Alameda County and Contra Costa. So our board and our healthcare agency were more than willing to sign in on that support letter. And I think CCDA sent a support letter as well. And as far as fish advisories, I'm pretty sure that was another casualty of COVID-19. We were looking for some funding for posting of the appropriate signage in different jurisdictions. I don't know the fate of that particular issue right now, but we will be looking into it, and more likely we're going to push it again for 2021. And then lastly is massage parlors, but more than just massage parlors. We have all types of businesses asking CCDH to really push the issue to open up their businesses. Massage establishments were the latest ones to seek our assistance on that. And we had to make it clear that CDPH is running the show when it comes to the guidelines, but of course counties can be a part of issuing some feedback to that guidance. So we will be making sure that those operators and those businesses and the rest of them, if they really want to make a difference, to push those issues up to CDPH so that their businesses can be addressed appropriately and we can get open as soon as it's appropriate in particular counties. So that's pretty much all that I have right now. If there are any questions, of course, be willing to entertain those. And if Justin wants to add anything, now's the time.
Good morning. Thanks, Ron. I know your committee has been very, very active. Everything from body art to fish advisories and the organized camps. We're going to look at where our priorities are a little later. But I just under your report, I wanted to reemphasize something you mentioned about organized camps. That particular issue has been going on for well over 10 years now. And I think it's a very, very sad indictment on locals and the state to not be able to resolve this issue. A child died 18 months ago, and that preempted or prompted the initiation of that new round of legislation, which I think you're absolutely correct was an overstretch. But I do think for our sakes and for the safety of the people going to these camps, we need to resolve this. And we should at least consider teaming up with HOAC and CHEAC and coming up with a proposal that works for us rather than always being on the defensive. I think that's the fundamental problem that we have had is we're always responding to somebody else's bill that's wrong and having a hard time fixing it. So one of the things we could consider is drafting a bill that works for us, provides proper public health protection, and doesn't give us responsibilities that we shouldn't be assuming. So, you know, that's something we can consider a little later in this meeting.
Hi, Justin. This is Lisa, and I agree with you. That issue is not going away. I know that Mr. Forbes continues to push us here at the local level for LA County, and I have been asked to draft an ordinance to address day camps. We're trying to really push it back because we feel that it should be something that the state perhaps should be looking at, whether it's through CCL, community care licensing. But I do agree that the issue is not going away, and it's better for us to be in front of it. We are going to try and address maybe lifeguards locally, and then that might be something through the Model Aquatic Code to look at, because the child died and there was another death in a pool, not necessarily the camp itself. But I think that the two issues are being combined. So, you know, the day camps we'll have to address because that is still something that there is no oversight. And it became even more clear because of COVID-19. And a lot of the, you know, businesses wanted to operate as day camps. And there was no way that we could, you know, there was no direction. So they could because there's not defined anywhere. So I think it is time that we really, you know, deal with that and then also look at the Model Aquatic Code or, you know, some protections to ensure that we're focused on a little bit more on lifeguards.
Absolutely. And I think we hold the state, particularly social services, feet to the fire. They've been the fly in the ointment on this issue for a decade. They keep on insisting the same ratios for these camp counselors and camp attendees to something equivalent of an elementary school. And I don't know whether it's for us to make that determination or not, but if they want that level of oversight, then they should enforce it. They should require it. That's not our job. But this issue of camp and the appropriate sanitization or the sanitary environmental health functions are being subsumed by this discussion of the relationship and the ratio between the camp counselors and the campers. And we should just write that out of the bill and write the state into it and give them the responsibility to figure that out.
And I think that would be appropriate, and I would venture to say that you'd probably get some support here from the County of Los Angeles because I think there's definitely an interest and there's a lot of pressure. And I'd rather than us going through a local process to really make sure that we address it from a statewide perspective.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
CCDEH set up a Zoom account for 500 users several months ago, and so all committees have access to that. Just let us know if you need to use it.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thanks, Cheryl. All right. If nobody has anything else, I'm going to go ahead and move to our EHIT committee. And then just a reminder, once we're done with all of our committee reports, then we're going to do a vote to accept it. And then one other reminder, if you guys can make sure you stick around to the very end. I'll remind you again as we get closer, but Tim's going to do a picture. We're going to try and do a picture Brady Bunch style of all of us. So please stay to the end and put your cameras on so we can get a big group picture. Thank you. So so once again, it's IT committee is up next. Is Mike on the line?
I'm here, April. Thank you. First, I just want to also say thanks to everybody for being on today. Just like Jag had said and a few others, I have been conspicuously absent from a lot of my duties, and so I just want to apologize up front. Still in our Emergency Operations Center, have been since March 16th. And I think the exciting part is that environmental health has played a very active role in the process here. But at the same time, it makes it really hard, I think, to support all of you. And so huge kudos to Cheryl and Tim and Michelle, because they have really been the troopers behind the scenes making a lot of this happen. And then, of course, our Daryl Booth and our Excella partners, because I think this wouldn't have been able to happen like it is now without everybody's support. So again, I just really want to say thank you to all of them. We did manage to squeeze out 5 meetings in the last year, and I look back at a year ago, and if you would have told me we would all be sitting here doing this today over a Zoom call, I would have said you're crazy. But I think it really highlights that technology has really become front and center in a lot of the work that we do every day. And while we've been talking a lot about this, I think more so than ever before, we really need to be thinking about how we can best utilize it. And as we, kind of talk about some of the things that we did over the last year, a lot of it, gets back to the website and just making regular updates to the website, trying to get people more engaged. We did our first renewal online, which while was a little bit rocky, I think overall went pretty well. But we continue to kind of work on some of those things. And as Ron mentioned, communication continues to be a challenge between a lot of our groups that aren't members of CCDEH. And as we look at the different tools that are available, we've been focusing a lot on the Google tools that we have through CCDEH, because CCDEH has largely been a Gmail and Google user, but that just isn't very compatible with a lot of the counties and jurisdictions out there. So, I don't know how many people knew what Microsoft Teams was even 6 months ago, but it really has grown significantly in the last 6 months to be, I think, one of the primary tools to do a lot of collaboration, because it also has file editing and file structure available, which, for example, Zoom doesn't have. But those are the types of things we're going to talk about a little bit in the session at the end of this conference, and also present some ideas and ways to maybe come up with mechanisms to help bridge that gap. Because if this is going to be the communication strategy for a long time, I think we just want to make sure that we're choosing the best platform available. But even as we go through, we did a lot of different things, such as the COVID stress survey. So all of you who filled that out, we really appreciate it. It was very helpful, I think, to bring perspective, from everything from fires to, power safety, power shutoffs, and all the different things that we're facing right now. So again, very helpful for those of you that did that. Also wanted to just talk a little bit about, what we do in terms of internet issues. I mean, there's folks out there, and I think that this whole pandemic and the switch over to technology has also highlighted a lot of the disparities in the community, whether you live in just a really rural area or maybe you just can't afford internet access. And for those of you who have kids that are doing Zoom classes right now. I think learning how to do a split screen and do other things for a 4 or 5-year-old just is really, really difficult. So how can we support some of those efforts, for the parents on the line as well, that maybe we can come up with some ways to do some trainings or some other classes to help facilitate successful courses for those that are still doing online courses. I think the other thing too, just tech partners, I'll be talking a little bit about some work we did here in Santa Clara County with Excella, where we launched a countywide COVID database. It's essentially a complaint portal. We were getting thousands of complaints during that 6-month period, and so we needed a better way to manage those. So we'll be talking about that a little bit coming up in our IT training later on. I think it's in November 5th. And then as we kind of move towards this whole, movement of IT, how do we use our technology partners? When we talk about data and we talk about data needs, I think we can all look at, our public health colleagues, and, a lot of the decision making now is based on data. And, I know the state systems have struggled a little bit with collecting that data and providing that data for a variety of reasons. But I think it just gets back to how important it is for our group to have some mechanism to collect data on a statewide basis. And, we still can't do that for food program and pools. We obviously have it for those of us that have Coupas, but it does get back to how do we collect data and use that data to make decisions as we move forward. So I think on a high level, those are the kinds of things that we're going to continue looking at as we move forward. But again, I want to thank everybody for all of their help and assistance through this process. I will try to do better, with participating in the calls. I think things are starting to hopefully slow down a little bit. But again, I think it's just a lot of unknowns out there. So any questions?
All right, hearing none. Thank you, Mike. I love your mask, by the way. Next up, we have the Emergency Response Committee. Marie?
I have to unmute myself. Thank you, everyone. Our committee was very active until COVID hit. So I'll just go through everything that we were doing when I took over as chair for Wes. Let me see here. I'm going to read the report. So one thing that was on my heart was, there's so many state agencies, Fed agencies, we got CUPA. So I wanted to do a more collaborative approach. So at the CUPA conference, I invited all the state agencies, Fed, EPA, and tried to collaborate more in sharing what does each agency do? What can they offer? So I thought it was very good. We were kind of crammed in one little small room, but now we're virtual, so I guess we won't have that problem not being COVID compliant. But I thought it was very helpful. Sauda, your body, I want to thank her for all her efforts for environmental health, for emergency response. She was able to get some FEP funding, so environmental health could participate in emergency disaster drills. Also, the State Water Board showed up, and they were talking about, what do they do when there's those PSPS power outages. Cal Recycle, they explained their new debris removal program and what they were doing this year to get the program fully staffed and trained. And then Fed EPA also showed up and also provided what they could offer, free training and advisement. Jason Baitzer, our beloved Jason Baitzer, where he sits now, he is very strategic in sharing with us what we can do, because there was this problem with MOOC versus hazmat, mutual aid, pathways, and how we're bifurcated, and how can we make that work better. And I'll explain more later, because of all the fires that are going on now. He was pushed into this, trying to get this worked out, and he is working on it as we speak. He shared with me a little, so he's going to share with the committee at our next meeting what he's been up to. And then I want to thank Clark Bacall. He's done a lot of work, and he demonstrated at that meeting his decision tree expense template for wildfire disasters. So I hope some of you were interested in that. Maybe you could have used it. Anyway, next is what we were working on was better coordination for debris removal and understanding, getting clarification from SAC OES. And Christine Sasko is our poster child for wildfires. I mean, all of you are getting, tied into this, but I can't imagine Christine and all the wildfires her staff have been experiencing in their county. But there's really kind of ambiguity on when does the debris removal program from Cal Recycle get activated? And at this time, when we were meeting, we were trying to get that answer from SAC or Cal OES, and they just could never give us that clear answer. So I'm not sure if that answer is there yet, but Jason's going to report out at our next meeting on these issues. Another thing is SAUDA, Your Body, and myself, we report to CDPH EOM, which is the Emergency Operation Manual Committee. So we work on state EFA plan and any changes. They have not met since COVID. So that has now, I'm not sure when they're going to report out. But that meeting is important to attend because we make known environmental health role. There's a really big focus on public health, the nurses, ambulance, EMS, behavioral health. But environmental health, someone needs to be at that meeting to make sure that they understand our role. So that's what Wes and Marcy were doing, and then now it's SAUDA and myself. The disaster field manual, we were able to finish Wes's work, and it was converted to the electronic version. And then we continue to support EDER-X, and that's what Wes was working on with Marcy. And let me see, another thing that we were focusing on was the second roundtable for wildfire disasters. We wanted to hold that in a collaborative type of setting where it would be Cal EPA, CDPH, CCDH, and the unified program. But again, the COVID hit, so hopefully we can have that happen, especially with all these wildfires that are going on right now. Jason was telling me they have 11 service fields that they have to deal with. He said that broke the record of how many fires there are, and Cal OES has to come in and get the debris removal going and service those areas. So I'm sure there is a need for a second roundtable conference. The PSPS, the group was able to gather PSPS guidance documents, and we uploaded them into the member resources of the CDCDH website. So thank you, Mike, and thank you, Cheryl, because I kept pestering you. How do I do this? Anyway, so all those are uploaded, so hopefully that will be a helpful resource. Again, the EF8, EF10 mutual aid pathway, try to get better coordination. When COVID hit, we had 2 meetings, and it was decided that our group would push the state messaging onto the members. So we were doing that, and we did have 2 meetings with the state agencies because they wanted to hear from the locals, what was going on? What are your challenges? And we were saying, tell us what is essential program, because we're all overwhelmed. And so I would say the water board was very, very good putting out direct messaging, what is essential program. And then I think the solid waste, Cal Recycle did also. But it was very, very helpful to have those 2 meetings. COVID impacts, we were discussing impacts among our jurisdictions on the times we did meet. And it was helpful just to share what we were each facing. And it was just very interesting. This was very early on in the pandemic. The one bill Justin Milan asked us to review was SB 444, and San Diego stepped up to the plate, and I was just so thankful because I was just overwhelmed. And this was like a fire hazard severity zone, state responsibility area, but they looked at it and they said, this varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So this didn't really become something that CCDH would take on, but I am thankful that San Diego had the time to look at it. Next. Let me see here. Virtual conference, we were able to set up 2 trainings. Big training, and that's already been done. And Jason's going to do the one on October the 8th. So I hope you can attend that one. He's going to give a lot of information, good information. Can you guys still hear me? Because my internet says it's unstable. Anyway, I think we still need to work on the EF8, EF10 mutual aid requests for disasters to kind of make sure that the Coupa fires are being requested. It's really awkward when you're trying to force fire departments to merge into EF8 and all go up to the SOC at the same time. It doesn't work. It just does not work. So I think Jason has a solution that he's come up with. Also, the debris removal or the public program, there needs to be more clarity. When does that get activated versus the private program on debris removal? And again, action roundtables for wildfires and PSPS. And then when this pandemic is phasing out, whenever that is, I'm not going to predict that time, we should really have an after action conference, roundtable, so we can decide if this ever hits us again, what are we going to do? What did we learn from this? So I do want to say thank you to Cheryl for keeping us on track, and Justin, oh my gosh, I could not survive without you guys. We're all tapped out. We're just working really, really hard. And environmental health, again, the workhorse with, diminishing resources, and your budgets are getting hit, and you're just out there still slugging it out and doing the work. And I want to thank each and every one of you for hanging in there, and please stay safe, and please, please, please do self-care. So anyway, that's my report.
Thank you, Marie.
Thanks, Marie. Anything else, Justin?
No, thank you. You covered it really well, and thanks for all your enthusiastic engagement, Marie. It's great to have your committee so active.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
We're going to try to have another meeting, and hopefully I won't cancel this one. It'll stay semi-calm, whatever that is.
Fingers crossed. Okay, and last but not least, professional development. Becky.
Okay. Hi, everyone. The Professional Development Committee has been somewhat active. Or not. Anyway, we have a small group, but as you can see, we have worked on the charges. We do have a contract with Adriana Smith on the development of the outreach plan. Unfortunately, I have to report that we have not worked with Adriana very much on that thus far. What we have concentrated on is we will be presenting on October 15th regarding the difficulty in promoting mid-level management and directors. We started a discussion, I believe in March, and we are going to be addressing it. Have a panel discussion on October 15th. We have 3 or 4 directors plus Veronica Malloy and Dr. Michael Smith from who sits on the REHS committee, educational committee. And we're going to be looking at possible reasons of why we're having difficulties, and also are the registration requirements, education and experience requirements, are they a factor in having this difficulty? As you may remember, we were successful in at least establishing an equivalency program so that environmental health specialists in other states could have a pathway to come to California to get their registration. So that has helped somewhat, but we will hear more from Veronica as to what kind of numbers we have had candidates apply for registration and thus forth. So please join us on October 15th. The other thing is we were asked to help with the CHA leadership program. With everyone's busy schedules, we did not get a lot of volunteers to help, but as it turned out, NEHA has a fairly robust management program. So we've kind of told CHA, go check with NEHA. But what we are working on is kind of a mini series that we hope to kick off in January 2021, which is only around the corner. And this will be it will be aimed at our associate members and existing mid-level management with our environmental health agencies right now. And so we are looking at presenting 4 sessions. We will work with Cheryl and Tim in getting this, hopefully use the same concept that we are using for our annual conference. But so as you see from the report, the one subject that we kind of have started working on is the global view from program to department. Basically, from seniors and supervisors, how they have to change the focus from working within their programs or their department, and then on a more global level at the county level, working with board of supervisors, with discipline and different types of things. And the second subject we have already started on is working with the board of supervisors, working on budgeting and that type of thing. So stay tuned. We hope to get some information out to you with some dates soon. The other thing the other items that we are still working on is a model internship program and a stepping stone program. Unfortunately, Jeff Tabor, who is working on our stepping stone program, retired, but we're hoping to contact him and tap into what he did and continue on with his work. So, and one important thing is Freddie Adjin has volunteered to be the new chairperson for this committee. So, and unfortunately, Freddie could not join in on the meeting today, but I talked to him this morning. So he's going to be the new chair.
All right, awesome. That's great news because, yeah, we've been asking and we hadn't found anybody. So I was super excited to hear that this morning. Thanks, Becky.
Oh, and I just got a note from Jeff. He's still there and he's going to continue. I didn't know that. So yay, Jeff.
All right.
How are you?
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because I'm noticing how we're getting low on time. So if we could go ahead and move over to our motion. So this is the motion for CCDH membership to approve the policy committee reports as outlined in these attachments. This was moved by Eliza Frias, seconded by Christine Sosko. So if we could go ahead and do your vote, yay, nay.
Please do not touch in polling button at the bottom.
Okay, so just hit submit, don't hit anything else.
Okay, we've got 52 votes so far.
Okay.
57. Give it another 15 seconds.
Okay. Oops. All right, where are we at, Tim?
There you go.
All right, awesome. Thank you, everybody. So next up on our agenda is our election and oath of office for 2020-2021 Executive Committee. So do we want to bring up, do we have that on a document who's coming in?
Not yet, sorry.
Okay. So it's pretty much.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah, I see it. Thanks, Cheryl. So so what's going to happen now is I will rotate out of my position, and then we'll have the rotation in the 4 exec committee positions. So I will next week rotate into the CHOP president role and I'll be past president for CCDH. Jeff is going to rotate into our CCDH president role. Dave's going to rotate into president-elect. And then we have Daryl, correct me if I'm wrong, Daryl Wong's going to rotate into our secretary-treasurer role. And then as far as the committees, everything will stay the same other than Becky just announced Freddie's going to come in as the professional development chair, and then Vicki is looking for a partner in the land water chair. So for now it'll just be Vicki, but if you're interested in helping her, please let us know. So with
April, this is Christine. Can I just jump in real quick? Kind of breaking news. Charles Gankel has just said he will help me and co-chair the Solid Waste Policy Committee this coming year. So if we could add him in, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other changes?
Question. But on the executive committee, do we actually have one person from we have this co-chair, but technically there's one vote from that committee, the policy committee, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes. So with land and water, Vicki's kind of taken the lead as being the person that votes. So it'd be something similar with Christine.
Okay.
Is my understanding. All right.
I have a question. Is Jerry Sipe still going to be in the water program or water chair?
No, because he's retiring. So I don't know, Jerry, if he'll stick around to help, but.
I see this is new on the next column there. So it's only Vicki.
Thanks for the invite, but Vicki has been doing all of the work herself, and there's no sense that I hold her back at this point.
Aww.
Thank you.
Aww.
You didn't hold me back, Jerry.
All right. So.
All right. Any other changes? So, Cheryl, you sure that I swear people in? I guess that makes sense since I'm now off the board, the executive committee, I should say. Okay. So those people that are under the 9/12/2020 to 9, column F, do raise your right hand and repeat after me. I will pause periodically so you can fill in behind me.
Do you want to do the motion first on the poll officially before they're in, or do you do it after?
That's a good, probably now, you're right. Thanks.
Thanks, Tim.
Because if people don't vote it in, I guess I won't swear them in.
Okay. All right, the poll is open
All right.
for the officers.
Thanks, Tim. So go ahead and place your vote, yay, nay, or abstain. Only hit submit.
Oh, it's really close.
April's going to get a second.
No.
Okay, 15 seconds.
All right.
Okay, it's over. Here's the results. Like I say, it was neck and neck.
All right. Thank you. All right, Marilyn, take it away.
Okay. So repeat after me. I say your name.
I say your name.
All right, you guys. Try this again. I.
Heather Forsey.
I, Heather Forsey.
All right. This crew is incorrigible. Do solemnly swear and affirm.
Do solemnly swear and affirm.
Before these witnesses.
Before these witnesses.
To adhere and uphold the Constitution of the State of California.
To
adhere and uphold the Constitution of the State of California.
Michael, you're not doing a very good job repeating. To read the procedures manual.
To read the procedures manual.
And sign into the CCDH website and update your information.
And sign into the CCDH website and update your information.
And confirm to do my best to adhere by the bylaws for CCDH.
And hereby do my best to adhere to the bylaws of CCDEH according to Maryland.
I further firmly resolve to attend and actively participate in all scheduled meetings and conference calls.
And
actively participate.
That, yes.
Yes, that.
Regardless of
I went through all the browser,
time or other obligations.
Browser, I at least got back to having.
Somebody's not on mute.
Here, yeah.
Okay.
Whatever you said, Marilyn.
Whatever Marilyn said.
Okay, I'm just going to read the rest and you guys say aye.
Okay,
the most important part was updating your website information, let me just say. Additionally, I promise to respond to all deadlines in a timely manner and to follow all instructions provided by the Executive Committee, ensuring the efficient administration of the conference to promote improvement in the quality and scope of all environmental health programs in California. Yay.
Okay.
Please say I do.
I do.
Way to rock on, new Executive Committee. Woo!
Yay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So to keep this moving along, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff and Justin.
Okay, real quick, this is Jeff Lamore with Imperial County. I'll say just a few words. Thank you, April, and a big thank you to Region 4. I'm deeply honored and thank each and every one of you for your support. I'm truly grateful for this opportunity to represent an incredible organization, the California Conference of Directors of Environmental Health, as the next president. Looking over the names of the past presidents, I can honestly say I have some very big shoes to fill. I am humbled, not because of the title that I'm being honored with, but more so because of the caliber of the people that I'm about to represent. I have been given the privilege to serve an organization that is comprised of environmental health professionals that are dedicated, knowledgeable, and extremely talented, especially in Region 4. I would also like to say a sincere thank you to Justin and Cheryl, who are truly the backbone and driving force behind the executive team and CCDEH. I look forward to working with our outstanding executive committee on this year's action plan. We have a number of goals to focus on this coming year. I'd like to mention just a few. We will be formalizing a process for the mentorship program and further refining our organization's professional development and outreach through the development of a series of webinars. On the legislative front, we will be working on cleanup bill for CalCode and body art. We want to better define the local role for SB 1383 and AB 1826, and for hazmat, the reintroduction of AB 2298 and AB 2993. We definitely have a busy schedule before us, and again, thank you, and I look forward to working with you all. And with that, we'll go ahead and move on to item number 7, the consideration and action on the draft or the preliminary action plan.
I think April needs to give you the gavel.
Ah.
Oh, yes. We almost forgot. Thank you, Cheryl. So I want to thank you all for this wonderful plaque that I received, and it's my privilege to turn this gavel now over to Jeff.
And thank you for the gavel, and I will place it in my plaque. Thank you very much. A very nice plaque, and thank you all. Sorry about that. Thank you, Cheryl.
Hey, Cheryl.
Pretty slick. That was pretty slick. I didn't know we could do that sort of thing through Zoom.
Very talented people here.
That's
Only
a new feature
Amazon
of Zoom.
delivery if you can do it virtually.
A new feature of Zoom, Justin.
Okay.
Let's do the chicken hat.
We've only got a few minutes left, and it would be fine. What we have done is we've posted 2 action plans on the website, and we also, as I mentioned earlier, did receive 6 inputs, prioritization recommendations. Stacy, Louis, Rebecca, Brad, Christine, Rebecca, Marie, and Warren, and maybe others. So those would need to be incorporated into this action plan as a proposal. So very quickly, the one that's on the screen right now is a draft, a preliminary draft that this group as an organization should just give tentative approval to, unless there's something in here that you as members of this group feel are inappropriate or not the types of actions that CCDH should follow in the next year. We don't have time to drill through all the details, nor is it really the role of the annual membership to deal with the details. It's the role to give general guidance. So as Jeff mentioned, if you look at a customary layout for the action plan, it goes through the executive committee tasks and each of the policy committees. They're the ones that are tasked with doing these various things. And we generally break it down into legislation or regulations, and then stuff like guidance or any other task that we identify. What I would propose, and just, we'll have an opportunity for you all to vote. And if you want to add under this section or under the general comments, what I would propose is that you look at this document. If there's anything that seems to be out of place, inappropriate, please let us know. Otherwise, we will take, for example, the prompt or the task under legislation or under outreach as a general approval for the executive committee to finalize this action plan. What usually happens is our Friday morning session, when we have that interactive discussion, we take it back and we populate this action plan a little more with that information, and then we take the next draft to the executive committee and they will adopt it. That will be later in this year or maybe even next year, given the delay in action. So you'll see at the top, it will be formally adopted by the executive committee, ratified by them. And this document is also a working document. It's not static. It will be changed throughout the year. And it is the responsibility of the executive committee to keep this action plan current. There are a few areas where we have proposed dropping, and let me just quickly highlight those because they may be significant. And there are a few areas highlighted in purple where we have review. So without voting on each, I think it might be time to drop as an ad hoc committee committee the medical and adult marijuana and the safe surplus food donations, and those can be assumed under the relevant policy committee. The next thing is there are a couple of areas where we have review in purple, highlighted in purple. Those are things that we haven't got to this year or may not be inappropriate. So those would be issues that we'd take to the executive committee for final action on. And then those in green are either the types of activities that we've continued being engaged in, or that, for example, like the Body Art Act cleanup legislation, we've been talking about it for a while, but we do need to do it, so we do propose continuation of that. So unless there are objections or any comments about this draft outline, this is what we would propose have you approve as the general plan for next year and have the executive committee fill in the details.
Justin, this is Lisa. I just have a correction on the legislative bill that's under Food Safety Committee.
Yes.
It's 3336.
Oh, my apologies.
No worries.
I remember by now. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. So I will correct that. And then again, just to reiterate, thank you for those folks that have done it, and those that haven't done it, please, it's never too late to get your feedback on priorities. We will incorporate all the recommended priorities that you've submitted and hope still will submit, and the executive committee will consider those to adopt next year.
And Justin, this is Liz, to the Water and Land Committee to add under legislation to consider legislation to limit the application of CEQA to water well construction permits.
Yes. So thank you, Liz. I've already added that as notes to this based on our conversation and your discussion about this morning. So that will definitely be on the list. We have a mini-series webinar that Jeff mentioned for professional development. We'll immediately start working with Freddie and see if we can tee up a couple of professional development and outreach webinars, much along the same line as this one that we've been doing this year. And then finally, Jeff, again, it's a requirement. I know we're over time, just a legal requirement, nothing terribly formal, but now you as president of CCDH should ask if there are any other public comments. Those are members, not members of the public, but members of this group, if they have any comments or suggestions that they want to have put on record, and that we will have to add formally in our minutes, just to clear up all the legal niceties of running a nonprofit organization.
Thank you, Justin. And to that, does anybody, any of the directors, associates, any of the members or membership have any comments they'd like to add? Any public comments?
So Kim and I just put together a draft motion that I think is what you just said, Justin, to approve the preliminary action plan.
Right. Thank you, Tim.
If that's the case, I can launch a poll then for you to vote on that. If there's, and then April, if you could help with reading the motion.
Do you want me to go ahead and do that?
Sure, Jeff. Thanks.
So motion number 5, CCDEH membership approves the preliminary action plan for 2020-2021 as outlined in attachment E. Moved by April, seconded by Dave Conway.
Okay, the voting is open. Please make sure to not hit end polling, just submit your vote. Okay, we'll give you 10 more seconds. Okay, the voting is closed. The results are, ta-da! All right.
Thank you, Jim.
Jeff, motion passes, right?
Yes, motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then-
Jeff, and the last thing I would ask you, we were remiss in preparing for this. As you recall, in our annual meetings, we always have that drawing, which is the questionnaire of, much of what we discuss, priorities and a reflection, an evaluation of the conference. We hadn't set that up for this meeting. I think it is an oversight from myself to not have that available to you. But again, I think subject to your approval, if folks want to send in comments, suggestions along with that survey, but comments about this webinar, how this was conducted, I think certainly Cheryl and I would be happy to receive that. They can be informal, no format per se, but any comments on this past year, if they didn't make comments now under the public comment period, or about this webinar series and this particular meeting, just fire it to us by email and we will bring it to the executive committee so that we have a record of how people feel this went and how the organization generally is going.
Thank you, Justin. Yes, I would encourage everyone, if they could send in comments, that would be great.
They can submit their survey on the same process as all the other training series that we've been doing on the website under event. And there's comment section in there that they can type in their comments as well.
And Cheryl, would they just identify it as the annual general meeting as the title, correct?
Right. There's a date of eval in there for October 1st.
Okay, perfect. So everybody can go online and complete that. Thank you, Cheryl. Hearing nothing going on, looks like item number 9, which is the bylaws and procedure manual review and approval. Justin, is there anything specific we need to move forward with that?
No, both KHA and CCDH bylaws and procedure manuals were radically rewritten. They've both been truncated, shortened. They were very cumbersome before. CCDH was very cumbersome. I don't think we have any very notable changes. I have highlighted a couple of issues there if you look. One of the things that we do have a question on that this group may want to address, and that is in the record we have had that retired directors need to have been environmental health directors for at least 3 years. I honestly, and maybe it's the COVID fuzz, I cannot recall when that was added formally as a requirement in our bylaws. But that, if you look at the document on the screen, highlighted in yellow highlights, is something that at least needs to be verified or stricken. But that is something that, as you know, we do have a data retrieval process about retired directors. It's not an application. They are automatically members of both CCDH and KHA if they are in good standing. But this was a provision I picked up on, and that is whether they had to be directors actually for 3 years. So I don't know if you want to deal with that now or whether we should discuss it as an executive committee and deal with it then. But strictly speaking, if it is a bylaw provision, it needs to be acted on by membership and not just the executive committee.
Any comments from membership on that?
Not on that, but just I recall, and I know we had some discussion after the last annual meeting with respect to having associate members be able to assist a chair on a policy committee, and that was not a, I don't know if we even addressed that here, but I was
Yes, it
hoping
has
that.
been.
Oh, it has been? Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, if you look into it, we've tried to restructure it and explain the relationship of the chair. We haven't changed the bylaws. That individual assisting the chair needs to be a full member if it's to be a co-chair, but can perform a coordinating role or a supportive role to the chair, provided the chair is a director. One of the restrictions that we have in our bylaws on associate members is they may not chair a regional or policy committee or hold an officer position. So they can vote on the policy committees or regional committees, and they can vote in these annual meetings, but they cannot be co-chair or chair of a policy committee. But that has been added to this. And you'll also note, highlighted in green, just to make it simpler, we put in appendices to try and cut down on the volume of the text in this procedure manual and the bylaws. So the appendices should also answer some of your questions, and they're all added at the back of this document.
Thank you.
This is Becky. I just have one correction. I think it's on the very last page. Kevin Yamada is no longer with CDPH.
Okay.
He retired a few years ago.
Thank you. All right. We will definitely make sure that we just take it out, and we'll talk to Veronica. I know she's leaving soon as well, isn't she?
I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Becky. What I think, Jeff, would be appropriate, if it's okay with you and the group, is to approve this subject to those corrections. Because other than that one issue of the 3 years, I don't see any substantive change. We're not changing anything in the bylaws. We're just clarifying and cleaning it up.
Okay, let me know when you're ready for the poll.
May I ask for one thing, Jeff?
Yes.
I put out an email about Keith Winkler's passing, and we received a lot of response on naming the Excellence in Environmental Health Award that Keith Winkler came up with back in 2000 when he was president, to name the award after him. And on the email response was very supportive.
Yes, I would agree. I would like to see that move forward, to go ahead and to rename that, to add his name to the Excellence of Environmental Health. Is that something?
Make a motion to rename the award to the Keith Winkler Excellence in Environmental Health Award. This is Becky.
This is Walt. I second.
I third.
Fantastic. So we have a motion by Becky and a second by Walt. And a third.
Can I just, on this discussion, I just was thinking that I know when we have these awards that are named to different people, but to be honest with you, about 10 years from now, somebody's going to go, who the heck was Keith Winkler? And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I think it really deserves like a paragraph description of, you know, what Keith was, and the same thing with the other awards that we have. I know when I went to, I think, announce the one at the luncheon at the CKHA meeting, and I was like trying to figure out, you know, when did we create the name of that award, and, you know, describe a little bit about why the award was named after Gary, and had to scramble to figure that out. So I just think we should have some more context that would be added to our website and available so people understand who the person was that was named after. Maybe it was Bob Merriman, actually, not the Gary one, because I gotta know Gary. But
now, I concur, Marilyn. I think that's a great idea. You know, when we look at the next year or two, so many people are going to be gone, and they're not going to remember who people are, unfortunately. Luckily, I was fortunate to work with both Keith and Gary, and do remember them both. But I agree, some background would be helpful.
I'll commit to doing that and writing it in the bylaws.
Sounds great.
So, Jeff, the only thing is, if that motion is with that addition, with the correction that was made, can we just resolve that 3-year issue?
Yes.
Because it's something that's been highlighted, and we should either keep it or drop it.
Has it come up as an issue, the 3 years?
No, but it was in a prior version of the bylaws. And if you want to just leave it as that, then that's fine.
Is the consensus to keep it or the consensus to drop it? Is there any opposition one way or the other from membership? Marilyn?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, if it hasn't been an issue, like we haven't had to deny somebody because they don't qualify, then.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
Just leave it in and deal with it if we have to.
Okay.
Ready for the poll? Motion?
Ready for the poll. Okay, the motion is CCDH membership approves the revised CCDH bylaws that reflect the legal separation of CCDH from KHA and the creation of CCDH as a separate 501c3 nonprofit organization as outlined in attachment B. Please cast your vote.
Guys are getting good at this. Okay, we give it 10 more seconds. I think we're losing a few people. Okay, voting is closed. Here's the results.
Excellent. It has been approved. Great.
All right, do we want to try and do a picture real quick before we start losing more people?
Sure. Everybody turn your cameras on and your microphones on too, so we get rid of the little red microphone slash. Okay, that's Doug Ames. Are you there? Jerry Sipe?
Yeah, I'm here, Timmy. I just cannot get my camera to work. So.
No, can we do no masks first and then one with masks?
Yeah. And it's Christine's birthday.
Ah, happy birthday, Christine.
Christine Lane from Orange County.
You have to give me like a 5-second or 8-second smile because I got to do 2 screen captures because we have 70. All right, I'm waiting for Dave Conway and Doug Ames.
All right, Jim, can't get my camera to work.
All right, Doug, we'll have to crop you in later.
All
right,
you can't
give me
be ugly though.
Give me your regular smile on 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so keep holding it. Sorry, I'm gonna take that, save it. Sorry, gotta save it here. On 3, keep holding it. It's good practice for your face. Okay. Going to screen 2. Keep smiling. Screen 2 on 3. 1, 2, 3. Gotcha. Okay. Do we want to do one with masks on?
Yeah, really quick. Put on their mask.
I don't have my mask on yet.
Oh, the other mask.
Just whatever mask you got.
Yeah.
This is fun. Whoops. Hello.
I like Mel's mask there.
I don't have a CCDH mask, Cheryl, but that's okay. I'm not bitter or anything. It's okay.
This is a see no evil mask.
Right.
I like the way Mel's wearing his mask.
Okay.
On 3, smile. Can't see him. It's okay.
Mel, that's not how COVID's transmitted.
It's a sec. Mask 1.
So Warren, your Melva's output.
And my group 2. All right, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Gotcha. Okay, got it. Thank you.
All right.
Great meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. It's nice to see everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.